Part two, we're rolling again. A large portion of Mrs. Post's work comes from mutual exchanges in the neighboring villages. A space of 4 counties is filled with a network of farmers' mutual lines. No toll is charged, and many talk for more than they should simply because it is free. As there are so many people on most of these lines, most calls fail because of the line being busy. Many do not answer promptly, waiting to be rung 3 or 4 times to be sure it is their call. Here, Mrs. Post's excellent memory places her at an advantage over the average operator. She does not allow a call to fail because of a busy line, but remembers the party calling and the party wanted and puts the call through later when the phone is not busy. Her memory for voices is so good she seldom has to ask for the name of a party calling. This saves much time and annoyance. Mrs. Post receives many words of praise for her careful, painstaking work. She is skillful and rapid in her manipulation of the board and is said to rarely make a mistake. She works all day, being relieved by an assistant at 6 o'clock in the evening. Okay, and this is a picture of Emma Post right here on this storyboard that tells all about it. She is completely blind and was a graduate of the Iowa School for the Blind in Vinton. She and her husband were also involved in the high school orchestra in 1913, as seen as in this picture right here. Later operators in the system from 1906 until a full dial system was in operation in 1956 included Zella Wagner, Mary Newhouse, Anna Mary Wagner, Lydia Stairs, Mabel Brubaker, Ona Cox, Ruby Husted, Flossie West, Gloria Agnew, Gloria Dixon, Daisy Doherty, Iva Dixon, and Thelma Hahn. In this picture are Flossie Claypool West, Millard and Molly Claypool's daughter, Thelma Hahn, Daisy Doherty, who was our neighbor up on the hill in the south part of town when I spent my teenage years, Rose King, Mary Litzenberg, our neighbor at the end of Smoky Row, and Ursula Reese. We'll tell some more history of the telephone office on another day. If you have any pictures that you would like to share of anyone we have featured or anyone from an upcoming program, please let me know. Correspondence for this week. Melody Heath Van D from North English said, "Great job, Jackie. You always make this so interesting. I enjoyed hearing about the Bill and Dorothy Fobert family with Jerry and Randy, and especially Amy's memories of her grandparents. Great pictures, too." Ron Van Burkham, now from Wisconsin, said, "Another enjoyable one." Amy Fobert-Trachta from Topeka, Kansas, said, "I loved it, Jackie. It's so interesting hearing about all the people from the past. My grandma would have loved listening to your podcast. Thanks for doing this." Pam Kavanaugh Shields said, "Great broadcast as usual. I remember Bill Fobert always having a smile and a joke. Jerry was a classmate and loved to tell jokes and kid around. He would drive some of us up and down Main Street. Those were the days." I heard from my friend Jill Van D. Boss from Thornburg, who watches me on YouTube, about the Fobert story. "I just watched your show. Amy really does look like her Grandma Dorothy. Good show." Sharon Hagen from Williamsburg said to keep up the good work. Susie Allison Lundberg said, "I want to thank you for reminding me of fond memories, one of which was the mention of Ruby Mitchell visiting Libby. Ruby and her husband, Columbus Mitchell, were neighbors, and on occasion we would drive up the gravel road to visit them or a neighborly get-together. They were always so inviting in their big, beautiful home, and they were the sweetest couple." Mary Ellen Bauer from Riverside said, "You're doing a great job promoting the History Center over there. Keep up the great work." Sue Oliver Cheney from Washington said, "Great job, Jackie. Enjoy listening and hearing familiar names of days past." Mark Claypool said, "Jackie, if history has taught us anything, is always love your neighbor and respect your elders. And back in those days, it was certainly not a throwaway society, but save and reuse for the next year's planning. Another great week of reporting. Thanks again for your dedication." Debbie Vandy Bombi from Oskaloosa said, "Enjoyed it today. Thanks for the memories, Jackie. I especially enjoyed the Fobert and Ballard families. I have one of Dorothy's family Ballard books. Grandma Daisy was a Ballard. She's talking about her grandmother, Daisy Cobb Johnson. Annie Weber from Sigourney said, "Thank you, Jackie, for taking the time to do this. I enjoy each and every week. Always learning something new from each week. Keep it up. Looking forward to every Saturday's broadcast." Nancy Weber Feeker, who was in my English Valley's class of 1973, commented when I assumed she was named for her great aunt, Nancy Jane or Nanny Smart. "That's right, Jackie. I believe my name was because of her, and my mom was named after her grandma, Minnie Claypool. I really enjoy your weekly broadcast." Nancy's mother's name was Minnie Artist Claypool Weber. She was named after her grandmother, who shared the birthday party each year with Aunt Lib. I went to North English to the library to look for some pictures I want to use in an upcoming broadcast, and down to my own stash at my brother Lou's house to find some of the ones I need to use. In North English, we run into people in the grocery store and we talk to them. I ran into Beth Carter. She is interested in my broadcast as she lives on East Oak Street, near where Libby lived, and she is also interested in our Carter heritage. She sent me a way to access some old Carter and Hardy pictures we can use. Someday soon I will have a story about Carter, Iowa. I also saw Casey Bill Kolosik at the store. He remembered that he was in grade school when North English had the centennial in 1954. And I saw Carol Benson in Sigourney, and she remembered that she rode a horse in the 1954 centennial parade. Last week at the broadcast, Sheila Ballard Knuth brought the Ballard book that she has, which was done by Dorothy Fobert and others. I was able to snap out some pictures to use in my broadcast. Here's a neat one of her dad, Kenny Ballard, on a horse. You might remember that Kenny Ballard was also on the Creamery board. After last week's broadcast, we had a discussion in the History Center about Dorothy Fobert's mother, Eunice Ballard Polton, and what an excellent cook she was. She and Margaret Gage and others had us truly spoiled at hot lunchtime at school. We also had a discussion at the History Center about the Locker building, which had the IOF Hall and the Rebecca Lodge upstairs. Scott Romine said that the building was actually two separate one-story buildings, and then the upper floor was added and the buildings were joined. The crown of the building now says 1890. I was trying to figure out how they got to the second floor. I'm sure that no one used that huge fire escape on the north side of the building. The other people reminded me that there was a covered stairway up the back to the second floor. Some of us older ones could just barely remember the building being a locker. Scott Romine could remember accompanying his mother to the locker as they kept their frozen food there. And also, since it was a meat locker, Scott Romine brought up that they butchered animals in the basement and then transported the meat upstairs by the way of an elevator. After Evans Law Firm and Evans Photography bought the building, they put in a massive staircase from floor 1 to floor 2, which the guys from the History Center know about because they went to the second floor with Lonnie Rogers to retrieve the robes and paperwork from the IOF Hall and the Rebecca Lodge and brought it over here to the History Center. As soon as I have time to look it all over, we will have a program on that memorabilia here in the center. Teddy Tabakhorst renovated the building after Alan Grimm bought it, and I believe the second floor then housed Vicki Grimm's quilting equipment. Dan Best this morning also said that he took accordion lessons up there from Bodeker's School of Music. I kind of remember that in the 1970s. And this week we had another person pass away. That would be Betty Louise Colbert Hellman from the class of 1957. And we have this big composite of all the pictures of that class of 57. She's on the second from the bottom row. Right there. And I would also like to remember my classmate from the class of 1973. Mark Romine passed away in Missouri this week. This picture is right there. This is from the Everyone at EV book. We were also glad we got to see Mark at our 50th class reunion 2 years ago. Our programs in the next few weeks will be April 19th on Oliver Electric, April 26th, Scott Romine's bus trip in kindergarten, Jimmy Scanlon and my Keller family using an article Dave Jackson wrote for the newspaper 10 years ago, May 3rd, Miller Hardware, May 10th, Miller Brick House, May 17th, Noah V. Miller and his World War I uniform. May 24th, Graham Hardware with the Mahana Connections. I would also like to mention that the next English Valleys alumni luncheon at Bryant's in the Williamsburg Mall will be held at 11:30 a.m. on April 28th. Please contact Alice Stramer or Linda Carter for reservations. We're also interested in learning about historical English Valleys items that you might wish to donate to the History Center. Please contact Dave Jackson, Scott Romine, or any board member to donate. Thank you. See you next week.
And that's a wrap. Good job, Jackie.